Okay. Just got the notice. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. This is Susan Melia. Sorry for the delay getting started. We're having a little bit of audio issues and options. So I want to thank you for your patience as we go through the technical challenges that we're experiencing. My name is Susan Melia. I am the project manager and customer success manager for teaching strategy support of the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services NC Pre-K program. And Christy and Janessa and Lorena asked me to share some information during this session. So welcome. I will ask if you have questions during the session to please just put them in the QA, and we will address them at the end of what I'm going to present. I don't think that this is going to take the amount of time we have assessed, but we'll see what kind of questions you all have. So I'm going to move forward. So what I am planning to talk through is to just provide a bit of an update on where we are with the onboarding of the North Carolina pre-K classroom in the various programs that you all have. Then I am going to share some usage metrics, some ideas of what we've been able to, what your teachers have been working on and in the platform throughout this year that we've had the access. I'm going to briefly talk about where we are with the transfer update, and then where we're going to be going on our next session of professional development. So for the onboarding update, we have the distance learning solution that is being provided has two components. We have the Cloud, Gold, and Online PV component, which is in the My Teaching Strategies platform. And there are 2,087 pre-K classrooms that have been deemed eligible that we've received information on. And of those 2,087 classrooms, all but 55 have been given access to the resources. That means that when a teacher logs in to their platform and they click at the top and they see library, they'll be able to actually go in to see the study resources. They have full access to Gold. They have full access to the family engagement activities. So that's what I mean by they've been set up with resources. Of those 55, I thought it would be helpful for y'all to see where we are still needing to have some information set up. So these are the top counties that we need to work with for helping that setup go. And I wanted to share, if you if you have a classroom that needs to be set up, or if there's questions about how it's set up. For example, in some cases, when we were adding the resources to classrooms, there might be several classrooms in a session, but we weren't exactly sure which one was the North Carolina pre-K classroom. There might have been another classroom that was in there, but it looks like it was the one because it may have had like NC on it or pre-K on it. So we selected those, but if we kind of made some educated guesses, and if that's the case, it may not be assigned to the right teacher. And if that's the case, please, you can reach out to us and we can help get that sorted out. I'm going to put in the chat, or excuse me, in the Q&A. I think you will be able to see if I post something in Q&A. Would you? Is that, or should I put it in chat? I'll put it in chat. The link. So if you need to reach out and, well, maybe I'm not going to put it in there. It doesn't seem to be working. Let's try this. No, we'll figure out how to get you that link. I'm not sure exactly how to work this. So.
Susan?
Yes.
Is this the link you were telling me about?
No, this is actually, I did get it in chat. As everyone can you see that?
I can see it, so hopefully they can.
Okay, I selected everyone. So that's the consultation link. So if you want to schedule a meeting for either a 15-minute or a 30-minute meeting, you can schedule, or a 45-minute meeting, depending on how complicated your project is. We can meet and we can work to help you get things set up. And so that's for Cloud, Gold, and Online PD. For Ready Rosie, we do have another platform for Ready Rosie, and in those cases, they're being set up a little bit differently. Instead of being set up in a Gold license, they're set up in the Ready Rosie license, and we have them set up by districts or by large programs. And in that case, we have 41 districts that haven't added teachers to Ready Rosie to use the platform, and these are listed are the top. Those are the ones that have more sites, and you can see there are others that only have one site, but those are the top 4, which is really not that many. So we just need to try to get the rest of your teachers that are eligible for Ready Rosie, let them have access. So if that's the case, and you need help with Ready Rosie, I'm going to put in the chat the email address that you should be reaching out to. Sorry, I should have had this one ready to go. And if you email her, she can help you get Ready Rosie, or if you want to email me, I can also connect you. And that's where we are with onboarding. I want to spend some time talking a little bit about the usage metrics. So what this is for our My Teaching Strategies platform and how your teachers are using the program. So I thought I'd just kind of go through what exactly are the different areas of My Teaching Strategies and share how we are as far as utilization goes. So in My Teaching Strategies, we have these 6 areas: the library, teach, assess, develop, report, and family. If you are a teacher, when you log in, you will see a teacher with the resources allocated will see all of these items at the top. If you're an administrator only, you won't see the library and you won't see family. You'll have teach, assess, develop, and report. Those are identified by only users that have classes will have access to that. So if you're an administrator and you do want to have access, you can do 2 things. You can you can put yourself as a co-teacher on one of your teachers' classrooms, and that gives you access to what they see, or you can emulate the teacher, and you'll go in as them and be able to see what they're seeing. So I wanted to just kind of highlight that for administrators who are logging into the system. Moving into utilization, I thought I'd just first start sharing by just looking at the visitors and where we are with the number of users that are coming into the system. This is for since August of basically the last 180 days. So it goes a little bit before that. And you can see that this is the number of visitors that have been coming in they track it on a daily basis. Of course, over Christmas break, there weren't very many. Did have some checking in on Christmas break. So I thought that you'd find that interesting to see how the visitor usage has been throughout this 6 months we've had the platform available. Ready Rosie was a little bit slower start, but then you can see we had some nice peak time in October, and then of course break time, and then additional jumping back up again. So again, that's just the number of people who are logging in and looking at the platform data on over a period of time. I thought you might find that interesting. So the next, remember, looking back at the features, one of the first features on the list is the library. In the library is where the users can go to see the creative curriculum resources that are available, Mighty Minutes, activity cards that can be sent to families, resources that can be shared with the families. And we have a lot of webinars and support documents that kind of walk through what these resources are. If there's a need, Lorena, I'm happy to do a very quick overview of the platform if your team would like us to do that as well. But as far as utilization goes, the library, you can see the different areas of how they're being used by the North Carolina Pre-K team. The bars are the number of times someone went into the library button. If they clicked on the button at the top that said library, this is the number of times someone went into the library during that month. It's not unique visitors, so it could be like if there's one person went in 1,000 times, that would be counted each time. So unfortunately, I don't think that's the case, but that's what that button is showing. The lines are the number of times people have clicked on things within those features. So the red line is the library tab. They've clicked on the library tab. If there's a resource library, which is the resources that you would send to family members, that's the green. So that's nice to see that that's been very highly used, that we have a lot of our teachers looking at what resources they can send to families. And the darker line, the gray line, is also learning games, and those are also accessing areas where you can find activities to send to families. So those are showing really good usage in those features. So I thought that was really interesting. And again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and I can go back to any of these slides later if we need to. Moving along that bar at the top, the teach utilization. Just wanted to see the teach areas. That's where we have the opportunity to create lesson plans, add the studies to your lesson plans, and also, of course, do activities. And again, in this area is where you can find activities to send to family members and share through the family engagement. Again, the bar are page views for going into the teach area, and the lines are clicking on buttons within the teach area. So again, we have adding an activity as our green line. That's where a teacher can add an activity to their lesson plan that's either an ITE or as an ITE is an intentional teaching experience, or a Mighty Minute, or a custom activity that they have for themselves in their lesson plan. And I'm going to answer the question that just came up real quick. And unfortunately, at this time, we do not have the capability of getting these at a county level. That's something we might be able to do in the future, but we don't have that capability at this time. We can only see aggregate data for the entire program. And moving on to, just to quickly, the other items here, the pink is adding a month to, clicking on the add a study to your plan. The gray is sharing one of your activities with a family. The purple is submitting weekly plans. Sometimes some programs require plans to be sent to an administrator, so that's what the purple is. And the yellow is to share a weekly plan with a family member. So the yellow and the gray are sharing with families from this teach area. moving to assess, which is the next item, this is our checkpoint documentation and checkpoints. And again, from the beginning of the year to current, we're seeing the data of how often a teacher is adding documentation for a child and adding preliminary levels for that documentation. So the red is adding preliminary levels, the green is adding the documentation, the dark green. Those are likely to be different because you probably add one piece of documentation with many children and then you would go in and level it separately. So that's why the clicks could be higher for one and then instead of the other. The checkpoint by child is doing that checkpoint at the end of fall, at the end of winter, is coming up very soon for your programs. Some of them may have already had their winter checkpoints at the end of January. Some are in the middle of December or middle of February, so we're working on that. There's two options to do a checkpoint by child, which is the green line, and a checkpoint by class, which is the gray line. This is somewhat similar to how a lot of our users use the program, but our studies show that using the checkpoint by class is more efficient for a teacher, quicker, yet more of our teachers use the checkpoint by child. So that might be something we might want to think about doing with some messaging to our teachers to share best practices, because we know that although the checkpoint by child button is on the left of the checkpoint by class, and they might just be picking that one because it's first in row, even though class is actually a little bit faster for teachers to use. So just a thought on that. Again, moving back to the features at the top, the next item is develop. And I thought I'd share some of the online courses that your teachers are taking and within the program. And again, all these online professional development courses are available for everyone in your program, and they do provide, some of them do provide professional development units for certificates to share. So I just thought it was interesting to see the most frequent use is introducing My Teaching Strategies, and then the Gold Introductions. Both of those are just introductory tutorials. They're not actual professional development courses. However, the Elevating Practice in Partnerships with Creative Curriculum Cloud is a professional development course. So that's nice to see. Although you can see how many people have started it versus how many have completed it. The blue is started, green is completed. These numbers are still somewhat low, considering the number of teachers and administrators that have the ability to use those. So this is an area where we might want to highlight for your teachers to take advantage of this online professional development that's available for them for free as part of their subscription. Moving on to reporting, I thought this is the best way to share this because we don't really have the ability to run one of these little charts on reporting, but I thought I'd explain what this is. When you click on the reports button, you come to the reports tab in the platform, and that's what this purple bar is. And then what this is showing is what reports are most commonly selected next, or where does the user go next once they've been in the reports button. And this shows that the most commonly accessed report is the documentation status report, which makes a lot of sense for teachers who are collecting documentation for all of their children. They want to see at a quick glance, where they may need to get a piece of documentation entered for a specific child or a specific area or objective. The next is the report card. That's also a very common activity for teachers to look at. Although report card is really intended for the kindergarten through third grade group, although pre-K, of course, can use it. The individual child report or development and learning report might be another option. So we might want to think about doing some communication to the field on the differences in the reporting. Individual child report is really helpful for identifying individualizing instruction to help teachers understand where they want to focus their instruction to support an individual child, as is the class profile report has your whole class to identify. And then the assessment status report just gives you an idea of where you are with completing your checkpoint. These two are not reports that looks like they went into the reports and then they thought, oh, I better go to add documentation, so they left it, or they went to the family. They might have clicked the wrong button or whatever. And then the class profile and the development learning report. So these are all teacher-facing reports. So it's telling me, although administrators can access these reports, they're not using them to the level that we would think what we're saying. So I would, we might want to let our administrators know that they can go into the platform and do some reporting themselves to see what's going on in their program. To answer the question about the report card, those two reports that report on a child's progress throughout the year. There's the report card and there's the class profile. The report card is gives a meeting, exceeding, or progressing towards report over 4 areas, and then gives some information to the right. It was really built as an intention to kind of be a replacement for the traditional class school report card for some programs. There's not a lot of opportunity for there to be any selection as far as wanting to make sure that you highlight a specific area when you're doing a family conference. If you would do the development and learning report, it was really built for the pre-K and below level, where you can spend a little bit more time providing some more individualized information for your children, specifically to highlight specific areas. And happy to share some links on those 2 reports for you to review. And if we want to do a follow-up call to talk more about it, we can do that as well. Okay. Moving back up to the top, and where we were looking at the next level, and the next is family. So with the family, there's 2 components. There's the inter-rater reliability, and actually now I'm thinking about this is in develop, not in family. I got myself confused, so don't pay attention to family. It's actually in develop. But inter-rater reliability is that feature where we have an opportunity for you as a teacher to practice rating a child based on documentation provided on where they would be leveled along our progression. And by taking the inter-rater reliability, you can, and getting certified in it, you can demonstrate that that we've consistency across all of our teachers. And when a child moves from the age 3 to age 4 to age 5, the teachers know that everyone is on the same level playing field as far as making the ratings for where the child is along the progression. It provides a little bit of objectivity in what could be a subjective assessment opportunity. So we highly recommend that all of the teachers become inter-rater reliable, and it is part of the program, again, under the develop section, not under the family section. And it is just, I wanted to kind of give you a snapshot of where the programs are that do have teachers that are already certified, so that perhaps if your program is not in here and you want to encourage your teachers to become certified, it really makes a difference and really does improve the reliability of the assessment data that you're providing from your program. And moving on to family engagement, which is what I really intended to talk about. The family engagement, again, this is the area where teachers are sending data to family members that are providing communications about maybe an announcement at school, or maybe just a parent might send a family message back to the teacher saying that their child is not coming to school that day because of XYZ, or that they maybe had a bad night and so maybe they need a little bit more TLC in the morning from the teacher. Those sorts of communications that can happen. So it can be a group communication from the family member or from the teacher to the families. It can be, or it could be a family directly responding back to the teacher. You can send documents. You can send documentation, like you took a photo of the child during class and you want to share it with the family. The family can send documentation back to you to share something that's happening at home, and they want to demonstrate that the child is doing something that they've been doing in class. And you can use that documentation, or teachers can use that documentation that the families send to create documentation for the assessment part of the practice. You can send little lesson plans. You can send Mighty Minutes. You can send activities. We have learning games. All sorts of those activities are available in the Creative Curriculum Cloud and in the Gold area that you can share with the family. So by looking at this utilization, you can see where the teachers in North Carolina are using this part of the tool to communicate with families. Back just to, if you're again looking at the bar, this is just to see how many times teachers are actually going to that page where the communication can be seen. And then the different lines are various components within the family engagement to see what teachers are doing. The gray line is our highest one. That's family messages. That's teachers sending a message to the families. It could be, tomorrow is PJ day. Remember to have your child wear their PJs to class, or, if they're doing remote learning, something about an activity that, bring to, the session their favorite animal or something like that. There's also sending an attachment. Those are typically the learning games, maybe a lesson plan, something that you want to share with the family as a teacher. If the teacher received a piece of documentation from the family, they can then, remember, make it into a piece of documentation for the child's assessment, and that's the green line. So you can see that some teachers are receiving evidence or documentation and making documentation for them. And then the last one I have here is announcements. And again, this is similar to just a group message, but it's more of an announcement that you want to send to the families. So those are the different types of family engagement. And I have gone through all of the utilization, and I know I really went through that very quickly. I know that there's a lot of different activities that can be going on in the My Teaching Strategies platform, and I just wanted to kind of just give you a very brief overview of what your teachers are doing in the program at this point. I'm looking at the chat, and I see there question, are there 2 different Inter-Rater reliability certifications? And because we aren't ones that list, but should be. So why don't you reach out to me, Jenny, separately, or I'm sorry, I might have missed it, Jamaica, and let me know if we can help figure out what's going on with that. So, and I'm looking to the next one. So I'm going to continue on, and I can continue with other questions later. The license transfer. I wanted to just kind of give you a quick update on license transfer. We are in the process of transferring licenses for the individual sets for the licenses that we received before the Christmas break. Most of those have been completed. The number that I have there is 38 as being completed. It has actually been up to 48 since I created the slide, so we've completed a few more since then. And the pending license authorizations then would be down to 34. So that means we're still working on those, and we will be processing those in the next, hopefully, 2 weeks. There are still 72 that I haven't received. They may have come into to Tennille, and she's holding those to send as a batch. But if you have questions about the license transfer, I know there's a lot of questions that are coming in. We can put them, if you want to put them in the chat, and we can talk through the ones that I can help with, or if Christy, if I'm not, Christy or Tennille can answer those questions. But I just wanted to, it is important that we have the licenses, have the children that are North Carolina pre-K in the state license for various reasons. The data reporting is one. Other reasons that are as we move forward as far as transitioning kindergarten transitions and data transfers, will need to have them in that state license for those to occur. So we need to try to work to identify where there are still questions, and so that we can help resolve anything that you have questions about on the license transfer. And then moving to professional development plans. We are in the process of preparing for session 3. And session 3 is a session for pre-kindergarten teachers, primary and lead teachers, and their kindergarten teacher counterparts, as an opportunity for us to discuss for the teachers to discuss together, and then also for us to have some transition activities with regard to developmentally appropriate practice in kindergarten, what does kindergarten readiness mean, how to complete the actual documentation that is being requested. We're still developing that actual content. We're working on that at this moment. So we should have a better outline in the very near future, but it is going to be focused on that transition process from pre-kindergarten to kindergarten to make it a more seamless transition. And I know that that's part of the state's initiative with their preschool development grant, and I know there's been some pilot work that's been done. So we're working to support that through this process. The kindergarten programs, if you're not aware, just in the last year in the ELI have moved over to Gold as well. So the transition can be even more seamless now than it has been in the past when they were using the formative assessment process as their platform. We are working to develop the schedule for that training, and we'll send this out. Lorena will send this out as well, but there's also a survey that's going to help us identify what is the best options for your teachers to attend, whether it's a full day session, whether it's an afternoon session or a morning session or an evening session, or if you do a split day, or if you have any specific days that you maybe have professional development days that you would like to use and you want it to be on that specific day. You can give us that information, and we'll do our best to accommodate as many as we have with that information. And that's what I have. So I have opportunity for questions.
Susan, I know you've been, this is Lorraine, I know you've been reading some of the questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to continue to do that. We also have staff that have been managing the questions. If you want them to read them to you, we can start with your questions.
So what did I get? Yeah, I may have missed some. I'm just kind of clicking through the chat. Is there are there other places there's questions?
No, but I can ask Jeannie and Sharon if there's any questions that Susan didn't get to during her presentation that she can answer now.
This is Jeannie. There were some that came up in the Q&A box instead of the chat box, and I can read through those if that would be helpful.
Sure.
The first one we got is, are the teachers required to complete checkpoints on virtual learners, or what is best guidance on trying to complete them?
I can't speak to anything about requirements, so I'm going to pass that one over to the pre-K team.
Jeannie, repeat that question again, please.
Are the teachers required to complete checkpoints on virtual learners, or what is the best guidance on trying to complete them if they are required to complete those checkpoints for the remote or virtual learners?
As far as best guidance, I can tell you that there is an online PD course that we host that has, I'm looking for the page, that has a lot of support for using the remote learning. And I'm looking on here, and I think this Transforming Family Engagement provides a lot of opportunity and sharing of that places guidance for collecting documentation from the family members for providing that. And in addition, we had a webinar in our platform about that, and I'm going to look that up and see if I can find the link. So if you give me a moment, in the meantime, you can talk about the requirements.
Yeah, I'm going to rope in Janessa and or Christy, because we may have to look back at previous guidance sent out. I'm not sure. Well, if you're asking, I guess we probably weren't specific or clear, but.
So this is Janessa. What I can say is we have not put any, I guess, like special parameters around remote learners when it comes to those basic requirements of doing, the ongoing formative assessment. So that is still a piece of our typical program requirements. The children are getting these ongoing assessments. Now, if, like Susan was saying, there may be some information available that helps to kind of guide what that could look like or should look like with virtual learners. But unless Christy or Ariel has something different to say, we've not changed those requirements.
Janessa, this is Christy. I would support you 100%. I think our expectation is that there would be, as good as can be expected, the assessments on the children, the families would have to be helpful in that. And I know that, as Susan has said, there are some resources available that helps with that. Susan, in the family engagement component, there wasn't anything specific toward assessment, correct?
Specific towards assessment.
I thought there was at least a mention of it, but not specific.
Oh, yes. Yes, we talked about it, and whenever you look at, I'm pulling up the right one here, this is where if a family member sends a photo or sends an activity or sends some kind of written documentation, like last night we did this activity and this was what my child did, you can take that documentation that the family members are using or sending and actually click on something, and it becomes documentation in your assessment platform for you to use to support your objectives. In addition, I know, and this is just for those of you who use Facebook, Teaching Strategies has a Community Connections Facebook group, and there's a lot of support. A lot of teachers ask questions like, how do I get a parent to do X, Y, Z? Or how do I collect documentation when I'm doing a Zoom session? Or all those sorts of questions that are happening on that Facebook group that people could then get ideas and additional support on. And again, I'm not advocating any specific social media platform, but I do know that that's a resource that we're seeing a lot of peer-to-peer support discussions going on.
Thank you, Susan, for addressing that. But Janessa, I would agree with your comments that we do have that expectation, and there has been some resources shared, but there are others available on there. But we also understand the situation we're in, but we also believe that if you work with families, there is a way to at least engage them to help with the assessments this year.
Yeah, and I posted a webinar link in the chat that specifically speaks to that. Any other questions?
Yes. So the next one we got was, where is the PD located?
If a teacher, the online PD, if a teacher goes to the Develop tab, or an administrator, both, any user can click on that tab. And when they go to the page, and I'm sorry I don't have a live connection on here, but you could then go to that page and select the level that you were at, and then there's many classes within there. Some are professional development and some are tutorials.
Okay, the next question was, why doesn't the information a teacher sends to the app not show up on the reports on the website? It's under documentation, but the goals that are met aren't showing up in the report. What can we do to fix this?
I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to, but I would suggest that if you think that something's not working the way it should, that you contact our tech support line, and they can help you. And if it is a problem, a bug with our system, they'll be able to document that and submit it to our development team for resolution. And I'll put the tech support number on the chat in a second.
Next question was, what data will be collected and when will we get to see that data?
Well, if you have a login to the platform, you can see any data that is being submitted to your submitted for your platform opportunities. Is that what you're asking? I'm not completely sure if that's what you mean.
It referenced your name too, as in if you would be collecting. So I don't know if they meant more a summary type data.
So if you're an administrator and you have a login, you can go to the reports section, and there's many different reports that you can run for the teachers and the activities that are happening underneath your program, including the child outcomes and online PD access and IRR. All of those are in there. In the chat, I put a link to our portal as well, and that has a lot of opportunity for you to review the various components of the reports, and then above that is the phone number for the tech support line.
We've got a qualifying question to this. It says, my question is specific to Tenille, what Tenille will collect for the state.
That's over to Christy and Tenille.
So this is Christy. As far as the data, Tenille is our grant manager for the PGG grant. The only information that Tenille would be capturing would be the developmental data that will eventually be shared through the connection between us and DPI, and we're still working on those details. As far as other data that will be collected, it's mainly what Susan has talked about, the data systems that are within this. However, as we work, as our NC pre-K team work, we will identify information or other reports that we might need to run, but specifically, it will not be any other data than data that's normally available for assessments and things of that nature. So I would be glad to talk to you. Who asked that question specifically, Jeannie?
It was Brenda Mathis.
Okay, Brenda, I'll be glad to talk about that with you, but we're still working out all of the details about what specifically will be collected at the state level and seen. But just remember, on any of the data that's collected, as you as the administrator, if you're under our state license, you will still have access to all that data as well. And it will be done in aggregate form, so it would not be self-identifying in any way of the individual children. I don't know if that helps, but I will be glad to discuss that in further detail if you need to. Just email me.
Okay, there's a few more questions. Several of our administrators lost access to most or all of their classes and sites when the license transferred. Who do we talk to about to get those back for reporting purposes?
So I'm fortunate that I'm really sorry to hear that happened. I did not know that this is that was going to happen. I was told that it wouldn't. So I want to help get this resolved quickly. So I would suggest that you set up a consultation with me at the link that I provided there, so we can talk through it. I will need to have I can't provide administrative access to a program if it's not defined by the state as the administrator of that program. So we may need to work on that. And it depends on who owned the license prior. So I think we can work through it. But let's have a meeting and talk through it.
Okay. And I think the next is there someone I could talk to about the transfer of the license? So that's probably along the same lines of what you just shared.
Yeah, it depends on what kind of questions they have. I can answer questions about the execution of the transfer. If it's questions regarding, other issues, maybe it would be best to work with Tennille to schedule meetings with her and I together so we can both answer those questions, depending on what the questions are.
And Susan, I just put Tennille's email in the Q&A, so if anyone needs her email, that's there.
Okay, great.
And Christy, this may go back to you or Lorena. I would ask for grace in regulations this year. Our teachers have had a lot to learn and get used to. This component came out after plans for the year were in place. My teachers have been putting guidelines into place. They will need some additional time. And I think this is potentially referring back to the checkpoints question.
This is Christy, Jeannie. I would definitely say we hear you, but I would turn that over to the NC Pre-K leadership team, and they can maybe speak to that more effectively. So Janessa or Lorena.
Well, so I want to make sure that I'm understanding the question. Is the concern about having to learn how to use a different formative assessment tool, meaning they had one in place that they used and now they're switching? Or is the concern still just directly used to adjusting to virtual teaching? Can we get that clarification?
Adjusting to virtual learning and all the different schedules is the response.
Okay. So, I mean, I would kind of go back to what we said initially. The expectation is that NC Pre-K children are getting, in essence, the same services, whether they are, virtual or face-to-face, with the understanding that there are things that get in the way of that. So I think it's kind of going back to this idea of we are expecting for these formative assessments and checkpoints and things like that to be completed to the best that you're able to do it. And then I would say if you have specific follow-up questions, definitely to reach out to your program policy consultant, and we can get a little more detail about your specific circumstances, and we might be able to dive in a little more.
And that was the end of the questions that I've seen come in so far. There was a comment, it wasn't really a question, just a comment about the inter-rater reliability that stated that all the teachers have been certified but that it was a frustrating process as there was no feedback other than pass and fail. Some of the teachers had to go through this 8 to 10 times before getting a passing score because they could not go back and review their answers or what they got wrong.
Yeah, and I understand it, and that's feedback we've heard a lot over the years. I do know that they have updated the inter-array reliability process by providing some on-page supports, but it still is not doing that individual score feedback, and I think that is designed on purpose because they really want the teachers to focus on learning how to read those progressions and the ands and the ors and the semicolons and all of the options that are there. If there's also support articles within the inter-array reliability to guide teachers to specific areas of the developed course that talks about the objectives of learning and development. So I do think that I know what you're saying. I've heard it before, and we are making some changes. But again, because it's important that teachers be reliable, they wanted to make it, not difficult, but, effective. That was a decision that was made by our team that is, ensuring that we are certified.
And that's all the questions that I've seen come in so far.
For teaching strategies, Jeannie, that's all for them?
Yes, that's all for teaching strategies.
Okay, well, do we, I assume we have questions for program?
I do.
Okay, just hold up. Okay, so I just didn't want Susan and Mia, I guess that concludes your portion. Any questions that may come up afterwards, we can definitely include and share with you. You're welcome to stay on, but I guess we'll move into the Q&A portion of our morning presentations.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
No, thank you. We appreciate it.
I hope you all have a good rest of your year and looking forward to the next PD session. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Bye.
Okay, Jeannie and or Sharon, if you guys want to start Q&A for this morning session, we're ready.
Sharon, I can go over the ones that we got during the WebEx, and then if you could go over the ones that you had emailed to you directly, that would be very helpful.
I haven't received any direct ones.
The ones that you have forwarded to Patricia that we were going to go over today. Since Patricia's not here. Patricia was going to go over them, but she's not here, I don't think.
Okay.
The first questions we received were for NC Pre-K site monitoring. There are a couple of questions for that. The first one is, are electronic signatures acceptable on designee letters?
So this is me, and someone feel free to disagree. I would say that yes, they are, at least for this year. We've made a lot of kind of concessions with electronic signatures in response to COVID. We know that people are trying hard to social distance and, avoid contact as much as possible. So I can't say for sure that that'll be a standard practice, but I would say certainly for this year that we could accept that. And then, of course, Lorena, Christy, feel free to jump in if I've said something wrong.
No, I agree, Janessa. This is Lorena.
I do too. Great job, Lorena and Janessa.
All right, awesome. Next question, guys.
The second question is, a Head Start classroom has no NC Pre-K children enrolled because they do not have a qualified educator. Do they still need to complete a monitoring tool?
So I'm going to say the direct guidance is if there is a classroom that is active, but there's no children enrolled, then yes, the guidance would be for the site administrator to complete the tool, to answer the questions that they can answer, and then to mark NA for any questions that would be specifically related to having children in the space. Now, if you have some additional concerns, if this is a classroom at a site that genuinely is not operating, they're not being funded, that may be different, and I would encourage you to reach out to your policy consultant to share more detail. But the general answer is if it is an active classroom, regardless of the number of children enrolled, the site tool needs to be completed.
And we just got another question in the chat about electronic signatures. Will we need to go back to real signatures next year, specifically on the family or child application?
Again, my response to that, particularly since most applications are coming in right now, is that we are still allowing that concession for electronic signatures. I can't say that it's something that we'll keep in place long term. But I would say given the fact that we are still actively in this kind of state of flexibility and you guys are currently accepting applications, I would continue to say that electronic signatures could be accepted.
Janessa, this is Christy. I would agree with you 100%. We do not want to cause any additional challenges to our contracting agency. So I think that answer was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's another question that came into the chat. So we're starting to get some different type questions now. How should we prepare for next year? Will we be held harmless with attendance again since COVID is still very prevalent?
Christy and Ariel, I'm going to either defer to you guys or Lorena for that response.
Well, thank you, Janessa. This is Lorena. I was going to say that's not something I think we've discussed at this point in the year. I would also defer to Christy and Ariel. I mean, we're still in, trying to get through this school year and close this year out in a few months, but, anything can change between now and the summer. I don't know if Christy or I don't even know if Ariel's still on, but if either of you want to add anything to that, I'd be hesitant to give a firm answer on that.
Hey, Lorena, it's Ariel. I'm happy to jump in for just a second. I was able to come back, so thank you for having me. I think our expectation is with the vaccination rollout and the governor's announcement yesterday about encouraging districts to go back into session that our intention will be to have a more typical year next year. We are cognizant that our lives have not been on any kind of straightforward path since March of last year, but it will be our intention that next year will be a more typical year.
Thank you, Ariel.
So then we've just gotten another question in the chat. They're coming in the chat and the Q&A section. And it's about LEAs. LEAs will need to make staffing decisions before the end of the school year regardless of held harmless. So I don't know if that's a question or just a statement.
Sounds like that might be a statement or either a follow-up to the previous question. I'm not sure if that came from the same person.
I don't think that it did. Okay. So I'll go back up to the next group of questions that we had were for the communication plan. Okay, so the person that made that statement is now saying if we don't know about classrooms and attendance funding, we may have to shuffle staff. And that was with regard to the LEAs.
Well, and maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, but if it's in preparation for next year And based off what Ariel just shared, if that's the expectation moving forward into the new school year, then I guess they would prepare as they normally would based on the requirements and enrollment and attendance. If in fact it is going to be expected to be a regular operating year.
Lorena, I'll add to that. This is Ariel again. I'll add to that I don't see any world in which if there is a COVID outbreak or people are out because they've been exposed that we would be punitive about that. I'm sorry, maybe if I misunderstood, but we would my estimate as of now is that we will expect full attendance unless there is a COVID-related incident and full enrollment. So is that a better answer? Is that more what you're?
Yeah, there was
this format's tough for these kinds of questions, guys.
It is. And there was actually a piece above that, above if we don't know about classrooms and attendance funding, that said, additionally, can districts require pre-K students to come in person only, no remote option for districts?
In next school year?
In next school year.
Sorry, I'm going to have to.
Again, I'm assuming it's pertaining to the public schools, the LEAs.
For next school year, I think that it's the same answer, that our intention will be for next year to be an in-person pre-K experience. If there are major shifts in the COVID landscape, we will, of course, adjust alongside you. We will never have an intention of having a fully remote classroom. Is that? Yeah.
And Ariel, this is Christy.
Wendy, I'm happy to have an offline with you if you want to dig deeper into it. I don't know that I feel like I'm answering super clearly to you. Oh, yes, that's an option. We've always. Oh no, in this school year, families have an option to do remote. In next school year, we do not anticipate having a remote option unless we have some dramatic changes in what we think the trajectory of COVID will be.
And Ariel, this is Christy. The only thing I was going to add is that, we will evaluate this year as we shared at the beginning of the day. And if there are other things that we think are great, we will continue to provide additional guidance about any of those changes. But as far as we know, we are anticipating, like you said, to be back to normal, hopefully, if at all possible.
Okay, the last couple of questions that we got were pertaining to the communication plan. And the two questions, I think, kind of go hand in hand. Is the one point of contact used only for questions related to information that was disseminated widely, or is it for any program-related question we have, even issues that affect us locally? And then the second part is questions would not go directly to our policy consultant.
So this is Lorena. So no, I don't mean to, so there's two parts here. I don't want anybody to leave with the impression that they shouldn't contact your NC Pre-K policy consultant. That definitely is probably the first person you should contact. And we kind of reiterate that point all the time because we want you and your NC Pre-K program policy consultant, to be supportive of each other and working together. The point of contact, although it's being created for the purpose of things such as this, like a follow-up from a webinar or follow-up after guidance is shared or whatever mass email we share with you, that's its intended purpose. But that doesn't mean that if you reach an area of confusion that you couldn't reach out to the point of contact. I think in cases like that where you need clarity, it's probably better to reach out to that person and they can still get you in touch with the correct person to help you versus just kind of taking a guess and sending out an email. But I would always start with your NC Pre-K program policy consultant most likely they have the answer, and if not, they know who to include.
And that was all the questions that I had gotten from the Q&A. We just had another one come up in the chat. Will reimbursement rates be attached to teacher qualifications next year? We have lost many of our qualified leads.
Christy, I don't know if you want to chime in on this, but that's not, I want to say it's not a discussion we've had, but it's also not, I guess, an area of expectation or an area in the requirements that we were looking at changing. Teacher qualifications is still very important to not only us, but the program. We know that a lot of you have faced difficulty in losing qualified teaching staff. We understand some counties have more of a shortage than others. So we don't want you to think that we're not aware of that or that it's not part of our discussions. But right now I wouldn't see that expectation or requirement, changing. Christy, I don't know if you want to add.
Lorena, I would agree with you 100%. It's part of our, requirements for the program. However, we do want to hear from folks. And so that may be something that as the year ends and as we're recruiting for next year that we'll likely get some feedback on, maybe one of those surveys that you talked about, Lorena, earlier today in the communication plan might be a good question or something that we could get. And then we can take that information. And that's why I made the comment I did earlier. I think we want to evaluate where we are and we can discuss those. But I think the expectation would be that you would have, follow the same standards as hiring lead teachers. But we do understand the predicament. So it might be that the requirement remains the same. But, as we learn more about where we actually stand, that as we evaluate and see that flexibilities could be in place, but we've not made any of those final decisions. I think we need to stick to the standards at the current time.
Thank you.
So we've gotten a couple more questions. The first one is, when can we expect to know our budget for next year and whether our slots will decrease?
So tomorrow we have our presentation from the budget and contracts team. So I don't know if any, I don't know if any of them are on this, if they came back after lunch.
Hey, Lorena, this is Candace. I'm here.
Hey, sorry, I was just looking for y'all to see if y'all were on here, if you wanted to chime in.
Oh, no, we have Christy and Ariel here if they want to kind of expound upon it, but I think Christy just spoke to it perfectly about how, we're just kind of reassessing everything right now. It's still February, and, so I'll just kick it back to Christy to see if she has just want to expound upon how we're looking at all of the data right now.
Thanks, Candace. This is Christy. I would say that, yes, we'll continue to monitor and look at that data. I don't think we're going to we understand this year was a unique year, and if you were not able to hold your outreach events, you didn't have parents that were willing to send their children, that would not penalize our any county or any contract administrator. So again, we will have those discussions in the very near future of how we're going to reallocate, but I would not be concerned about enrollment this year necessarily impacting what you might have. As far as timeline, Candace, you may be able to speak further, more precisely about that because you're more familiar with that timeline.
Yep, and we are going to go over it tomorrow too with that. So once we do actually have some of the answers to the policy questions and programmatic questions about how you all will be compensated and how slots will be looked at and everything and how that guidance will change, then we'll be able to roll out the normal request for your budget information and be able to provide the funding information. If it would remain the same or if there was an increase or decrease, we will be able to provide all of that information once we are, able to get the guidance out, or at least get the guidance drafted for that.
Yeah, I would just add, Candace, that we're, you know, at the state level, we're working on budgets, and we also need to see what kind of funding we have for NC Pre-K. So all of this, these conversations are happening, but we do not have that final budget from the governor's office yet. And so once we get all of that, we'll be able to move. Believe me, we are already in the conversations of how this is going to work. We just don't have details, final details to share with you at this time.
Okay, we've had 4 more questions come in. Will educators be required to utilize the TS tools next year? Not everyone in my area uses the creative curriculum.
Yes, so this is Christy. I will comment on that. We have funding for the teaching strategies through our PDG grant for hopefully the next 3 years, and it is something that we're hoping to build into the program. We're looking for sustainability dollars through that. So that is a resource that teachers will have. We do realize that not everyone uses the creative curriculum, but my understanding is that the resources are adaptable to all of the approved curricula that are all the approved curricula for NC Pre-K. So Susan, is Susan still on?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. If you have more specific questions about that, or if there are issues, please let me know and we can address that. But yes, our anticipation is that everyone will still have access. This is a resource that we believe is a valuable resource, and if that is not the case, we'd love to hear from you, but we believe this is a valuable resource for our teachers, and it will be something, like I said, that we have grant money for the next 2 years after this year, and we are looking at how to sustain that in future years.
Okay, next question. Is there any possibility that the rates per child will be increased in the 2021-22 year? Our region is in danger of losing even more classrooms due to financial constraints.
I will jump in, and Ariel, please add to this if you would like. We are always, I will tell you, we have asked for the past several years for rate increases, and we support and we hear you in saying that we need rate increases. That is a priority for the division, but we have no idea until budgets are passed whether or not there will be a rate increase.
Yeah, this is Ariel. I think, you know, we hear you, and it is something I hope that, you know, I hope you guys are sharing that in your communities too. So, you know, we know you need increases, and as soon as we have funding to do that, we will.
Where can I get a copy of this presentation?
That'll be sent, this is Lorena, as I stated at the beginning, that'll be sent to everybody in a PDF. If not this evening, then definitely after tomorrow's presentations. We'll send everything in one email. That way it's all together and easy to find. So no later than tomorrow, end of day.
What is the guidance on the screening process for new student enrollments for the upcoming year?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. What is the guidance on the screening process for new student enrollments for the upcoming year? And this is, I would think it potentially relates to the developmental screening process.
Again, I would say this is one of those areas where there haven't been any specific concessions that have been developed around screenings, much like with the formative assessment. So again, I think this is something where, the expectation is that these requirements are still being met, with the understanding that it may require some creativity, it may require kind of some grace with what's happening, but to the best that I know, there are no intentions of adjusting those requirements.
Has DCDEE considered investing in an online application service? There are many services out there that would help streamline the process, and it may be possible to upload mass child application data directly into app.
This is Lorena. So we've definitely, for the past, year or so, we've definitely been looking closer at our systems and how we can enhance them. We are in communications with other team members, and in order to, to enhance our data system. So we're always looking at how to improve that and make it easier, not just for us, but for contracting agencies as well as the main users of our 3 data systems. So yes and no. I mean, I think that's a good idea and a good suggestion, and we can definitely take that into consideration. Just keep in mind that this itself has been a process. Just having the discussions about what we want, what our wish list is, and what we want the systems to do, not only for us, because we look at both sides, right? We look at how do we need this to work for us internally, and how do we need this to work for our external users. So contracting agencies, maybe site agency staff, and even families, how can they interact with our system to make it more cohesive and friendly? So yes, but it's going to take some time. But any suggestions you have, we'll definitely, we would love to hear about them. And if I'm not mistaken, that's been part of our process too. We've been trying to gather information from our users out in the field, or out in specific counties, So for those that have been part of those discussions, we appreciate that. These are discussions that are going to keep happening as we continue to make enhancements. I just wouldn't expect anything immediately. And trust me, I feel you on that, because if I could have snapped my fingers and had this fixed like day 2 of being on the job, I would have done that. So it's definitely it's something that we're definitely working towards continuously.
Are there any changes to the eligibility requirements for the 21-22 school year?
This is Lorena again. No. That's the short answer. It sounds kind of harsh, but I mean, I would say no unless somebody knows something I don't. I don't see that there are changes in eligibility.
And that's all I've got right now.
Okay. Sharon, do you have anything?
The questions that were sent to me earlier this week were put in the chat box, so they've been answered. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, well, if there are no other lingering questions, this concludes our presentation for today. Before everybody jumps off, just keep in mind that we do have our second presentation or second day of presentations tomorrow. Janessa, what time does that start? I don't have that agenda up.
I believe it's running 10 to 2. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, that sounds
right.
Okay, thank you, Sharon and Janessa. So we'll be starting at 10 o'clock. Hopefully there's no technical difficulties. FYI, if you don't hear anything when you log on, yes, we are in practice. And so just give us some time. If we run into any hiccups, we'll definitely send a little message through the chat and let you know. I guess we'll talk to y'all tomorrow for budgets, contracts, and EES, which is Teacher Licensure for NC Pre-K. Thank you for spending practically your whole day with us. I know it's tough, but thank you for participating, and thank you for everybody who presented, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.